Hey there, Victor Cho here, and welcome to a very special episode of my podcast. We're going to do something a little bit different today. It's not going to be a traditional podcast. It's going to be a little bit more talking head. And the reason we're doing this is I'm actively involved, in addition to my day job as a founder and CEO of a company. I do spend a lot of time on this topic of the impact of AI on society, the impact of AI on work, on learning. One of my roles, I'm on the advisory board of the Wharton AI and Analytics Board for the University of Pennsylvania. So I have definitely crafted some thoughts and some frameworks around what does it mean to be a knowledge worker in this world of AI. And in particular, if you have children, I think this is the most common question I get in almost every interaction. I run into very intelligent parents and they are asking, like, what does my child learn? What do they go to school for? So I've given a number of presentations on this, actually 2 children, 2 high school kids, 2 college kids. And the response from the parents was, hey, can you please put that into a package form? Because we would love to get it and share it. And so that's what this is. This is a presentation. I call it, What Should We Tell the Kids? But it is actually broader. I think you will find insights in here around what's happening in the world and its impact on work that hopefully will be valuable. So I will take you through the presentation that I've given to these other folks and hope you'll find it useful. So for those of you that don't know me, or maybe this is your first podcast view, I'm Victor Cho. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Movid. The flow of this presentation, what I'm going to take you through, are 5 quick sections. One, I do want to do a little bit of a personal intro if you don't know me, so I can give you a sense of my background and why I believe what I believe. Big disclaimer about what you're about to see. I'm going to take you through some what I consider foundational AI frameworks. I think these are things that it's important for any human being on the planet to understand some of these things. And I am surprised by how many people don't. So I'm going to share those. I'm going to give you 3 what I call useless predictions, but that are quite useful. There's a lot of buzz in the society around things like general intelligence and the impact to job markets. So I'm going to delve into that. And then finally, I will end with what are the 4 core things that I would do if I were starting my career. This is how I framed it for the students. So this is the flow we're going to go through. We're just going to jump into it because I'd love to keep this pretty tight. So a little bit about me. I call myself the anti-tech bro, tech bro. This is an AI-generated image of a tech bro, which is kind of funny if it's a term that you've heard. It's actually kind of amusing. My college friends called me at like 1:00 in the morning one day, and they said, "Hey, Victor, you seem like a really good guy, but are you secretly a tech bro?" And this was a couple of years ago, and I laughed because I had heard the term, but I couldn't really articulate what it was and why it was so bad. But again, I call myself the anti-tech bro because what I am focused on, which I think the tech bro name is kind of the counter to this. My personal focus is being a good citizen as a CEO, as a leader, as a manager of a company. My ethos has always been, look, you can be, a criminal, scale a business and just break every law, right? You know what that looks like. A large number of our business executives are still what I call mercenaries. They are out there just with the sole purpose of creating profit and creating shareholder value. And this was a very archaic concept of business. It's what I learned in business school, actually 30 plus years ago, that your only role was to maximize shareholder value. But the society has evolved to a world of stakeholder balance, right? You are treating your employees well. You're building great products for your customers. Yes, of course, you're delivering value for your shareholders. I consider that type of executive a business citizen, right? You're thinking broadly. And in particular, you're thinking about what is my business impact on the society at large? So that's my role. The tech bros I put in the mercenary category. And where my personal passion really lies is this idea of not only do you have shareholders, customers, and employees, but you have to think about the impact of what you're doing on society. And there has been no greater time in terms of this being an important mindset than this world of AI. We are going to go through one of the most transformative periods of society in terms of how we interact as human beings as a result of AI. And so if we don't have business leaders that are thinking about what are the impacts of what we're building, what are the second order impacts of what we're building, then we can run into big trouble. So that is me in a nutshell. Quick background, I've worked in big, small companies, started my career at Microsoft. I've worked at places like Intuit, iVillage in the early .com days. I've done multiple startups. This is my third CEO role. So I've run companies, Ophoto, one of the early photo sites, Evite, the large invitation network, and now a company called Mobid, which I'll tell you a tiny bit about at the very end. One big disclaimer, everything you're about to see is just one person's point of view. So this really bothers me when I see executives come out and say like, no, this is how it's done and you have to follow this. I think that's completely wrong advice because every human being is different. Everyone has different contexts, right? Your family circumstances are different. Your capabilities are different. And so, yeah, I like this cartoon. Everything's AI driven with a little star. That's Gemini. Is this jump doable? Yeah, this guy who's super fit is like, yeah, I can do it. Like, yeah, everyone make the jump. It's like, no, maybe not. So everything you're going to see here framed is kind of my perspective. This is what I would do if I were starting my career. And I would love you to just take it as that. You may hear things where you say, no, that doesn't make any sense for me. And that is exactly the point of this slide. So the core AI frameworks, let's jump straight into what has changed in the world that is important from my perspective. And I'm going to give you two or three. So there's a lot of news. If you track the tech news, if you're in that industry, you are overwhelmed by the impact of AI and everything, and you might not be able to make sense of it. But I will give you, from my perspective, just a handful of really foundational things that you should understand. So the first one, that it really underpins all of this, is that artificial digital neurons and neural networks actually work. Now, we, the society, have been working on neural networks for decades. We've been working on artificial intelligence for decades. And the entire premise of that work, a neural network, you can think of it as a very, very simple view, right, of some math that takes an input, some inputs, and does some processing, and then creates an output. And that's the bottom, right? That's the artificial neuron, digital neuron. That's no different from the way our biological neurons work, right? We have axons and somas and dendrites, and they take signals, right? They apply probabilities, right? They don't apply probabilities, but right, the process creates a probabilistic engine, right, that triggers a signal. So conceptually very similar. The big thing we didn't know for sure as a species was that all of the complexity that comes from a biological neural net like our brain, we didn't know for sure that by replicating that in digital space, we could get to higher level reasoning and thinking. We knew we could get to things like better chess, and we knew we could get to things like, very discrete tasks, right? But cracking open thinking was the big thing that happened in the last 3 to 4 years, right? It's clear that we have AI engines now that can reason and can think and can even be creative, right? And that is all just a function of validating this. So that's one huge step that we took. The next huge thing that we learned was that stochastic is just a fancy term for a statistical process, right? That a statistical process can create intelligence. This is a radical idea. Now, you might have heard, if you track the AI news, in the early days, you probably saw news that said, hey, ChatGPT and these large language models are nothing more than engines that create what's called tokens, right? The little syllables of, fragments, not even full words, right? Fragments of words. And people called it a really complex spell checker. It's gotten way more complex, but at its core, this is actually accurate, right? A large chunk of what drives AI today are these probabilistic engines that take a lot of complexity and say, hey, here's the next thing that I would like to put out. And the end result of that is, as you'll see in a second, is some incredible creative thinking, reasoning, etc. And so the huge thing that was unboxed from my perspective, and this struck me like a train the first time I saw the ChatGPT output way back in 2022, end of 2022, was, holy cow, a statistical engine may be the path to cracking intelligence. And I'll just ask this simple question, which is maybe our biological networks are nothing more than this on steroids, right? Do you know the next thing that's going to come out of your mouth? You don't. It's very possible that, and again, we have way more complexity in our brains, but at the core, right, the reasoning engine, in humans might be nothing more than a probabilistic engine. That's a huge idea. The next big thing that's happened is we are going to unleash this intelligence as a service to the world. You've probably heard about things like software as a service, right? That's, you go online and you use your Gmail, right? You use your applications that used to be on CD-ROMs. There are things like infrastructure as a service, right? Amazon provides this. I run businesses. I used to have, $20 million of server farms and multiple server locations. I don't have any of that now because we can click a button, we can provision computers and resources from the cloud. Manufacturing as a service. There are great examples of companies that literally are, $10 million, one person, because they've built a product, manufacturing has been outsourced, Amazon delivers it. So this idea that you can take complex processes and put them into things that you can consume as a service is not new, right? This has been around for a long time. But we now have, because we've cracked higher level reasoning, we will have intelligence as a service, which is a crazy idea, which is, imagine, right, the higher level thinking power of most, I'm not going to say all human beings, but most human beings is now going to be consumable as an online service and available anywhere and available at potentially a fraction of the cost of what a normal human being would normally get charged for that expertise or that capability. It's very early stages of this, but it's a radical idea. And it creates this world. When the AIs first came out, people talked about, hey, this is kind of like there's 1,000 grad students in your pocket. And I knew that was a way too low of a bar, right? That's the world's intelligence is going to be in everybody's pocket. You could argue it's already close to being there. It's getting more and more evolved every single month, right? The pace of innovation is insane. And so this is a crazy idea, right? We have digitally created intelligence. It's probably a probabilistic engine, and now it's available to every single person in their pocket via, today, things like ChatGPT or Gemini or these web services. But in the future, it'll be ubiquitous, right? The intelligence you need will be a button click away. Now, hopefully you can see these slides kind of in the key in terms of the resolution. But is this really intelligent is the big question. Like, how smart have these systems gotten? What you're looking at here are some curves of, it's called the AI technical performance benchmark versus human performance. So if you can see my mouse, this 100% line, this is kind of, typical human baseline performance on various things. So this blue line, image classification, and this goes all the way back to 2012. So the way to read this is in 2012, computers' ability to image classify, right? Look at a picture and say, oh, that's a house, that's a dog barking, whatever it is, was less than human. And you can see the trend line. It slowly got better and better. In 2015, it became as good as a human. Now it's slightly better than humans, right? So computers can actually process images. This is why self-driving works so well, right? They can actually process images better than human beings. What you're looking at are a whole bunch of different curves, right? So this light blue curve, this is medium level reading comprehension, right? That started down at the 80% mark, but in shorter time frame surpassed. Now, what do you notice? You notice that all of these curves, the slope is changing. And now we are seeing some radical acceleration as a result of the AI performance, right? So this curve, this dark blue line, this is PhD level science questions, right? Went from nowhere close to a human being to surpassing a human being as a result of these improvements that we made in the last, call it 2 years. You are going to see this trend on almost every dimension of human performance. Right? It's going to go from not as good as human to way better to PhD level to even surpassing. So that's one data point. Like, these systems are incredibly good and they're getting better by the day. The other key thing I wanted to share is most people today are using the AIs in what I call a stimulus response mode. So they probably have a version of a ChatGPT or a Gemini or a Claude, whatever model you're using, and you're using it as kind of a chatbot, a stimulus response. But these systems can do way more. So what you're looking at here is the length of tasks AI can do in terms of how long the AI can process. And hopefully many of you have seen this, right? Depending on the model that you're using, right? It may take 10 or 20 minutes to do, and it's doing way more than just an initial response in terms of how it used to function in the earlier days of AI, right? So this curve, right? You could look at, this one was doubling this blue line, the time was doubling every 7 months. This yellow curve might be the new curve. It's going even faster. But you have hours, right? You have AIs with the ability to spend hours of time on a given task, right? Which is way more than just, can you answer this question for me? So that's already here, and it's just getting even longer. The second is, well, how many months of work can these systems do relative to a human being's output? And so this is also a very scary curve. So right, you're looking at here. So back in let's actually pick 2022, ChatGPT 3.5, right? At that point in time, it could spit out maybe a minute's worth of work was the equivalency, right? But this is not a linear curve, right? You can see that we are already at a point, let's see here early 2026. Easily this could do an hour's worth of work, of human beings' work, right? Effectively, instantly. And the prediction is this is just going to continue to go up. Now, this chart, I'd argue, is actually underplaying what's happening, because I'm going to show you another one in a second that we probably already surpassed some of these marks. But the high level thought is that this is not just, oh, well, how much can AI do? Because it's just answering my question. No. AI is going to be doing a lot more work and a lot more elongated processing cycles. That's already happening. The final thing, I think, key foundational thing that you should understand is this idea of agentic systems. So again, most people aren't creating agents. They're not interacting with agents in their day-to-day. You might have heard this term in the news. What is an agent? Super simple definition of an AI agent is something that receives, represents, reasons, and acts. So again, it moves out of this model of, oh, I'm just going to do what you asked me to do. And right, I'm going to take a task, or I'm going to take a goal. I'm going to receive it. I'm going to figure out what that means. I'm going to actually make my own decisions, and I'm going to go all the way to action, right? This is why these systems are taking 20 minutes, hours at a time, because they're actually solving problems in a more proactive way. That's already here, right? And that's clearly the path of where this technology goes. So if you put that all together, right? The world's intelligence of pretty much any field, together with agentic capability that can think and reason longer, what do you get? I think the best example of that is what came out of Cosmos. So company Edison has an AI scientist, which this is actually fairly recent over the last couple of months. And what they wanted to understand was, hey, could we take the work of grad students, and could we have AIs do that? Agentic AI systems do that. And what they found at a high level was, yeah, absolutely. So they have multiple systems, right? Multiple systems that are running, but they ran their AI against these data sets to see how did they do compared to what a grad student would do. They ran for 12 hours. Some of these highlights I'll pull out, right? These agents they wrote their own code, which is a crazy thought. Right, these systems, as part of their agentic goal setting, said, oh, well, I don't know how to do that. Let me go write some code to do that. Let me go read 1,500 research papers. The scary takeaway is they took basically what a grad student would have taken 6 months to do and created the output in a day. Grad work quality output in 1 day from an agentic system, right, with intelligence. Not only that, but the output of this was new. So that was another key thing, which is like, hey, can the AI be creative, right? Can it maybe it's just regurgitating things that it's figured out. It's like, no. The AI in this instant actually came up with new ideas, new thoughts, right? Novel insights. So, and again, this is I call where we are with AI, like day 1 of 1,000 days, right? This is just still the beginning of what these systems are going to be capable of. So in some ways that's probably scary thought, which is like, ooh, AI is going to do everything, or could do everything. I don't think that's the case. So I'll get to that in a second. Some quick predictions. I think these are useful because I hear a lot of energy. I see a lot of energy around these things. And at least for me, again, data point of 1, I actually kind of don't care. And I think it's noise. And I do think I wanted to share that. So I'll call these vague but useful predictions about AI. The first one is this idea of artificial general intelligence, which the term has many, many definitions, but in its simplest, you can think of, okay, great. This Cosmos is a great grad student, but maybe it can't go play chess. It can't go do anything. It's not as flexible, as malleable as the human brain. And so the tech bros of the world, right? We're on this hunt for, well, how do we create artificial general intelligence? How do we create something that could do anything that a human being could do in one system? And my take is, we're working on it. It may come, it may not come. I don't know when it comes, but it actually doesn't matter for the purposes of this topic, because you can clearly see if you're a knowledge worker, even without artificial general intelligence, the combination of intelligence and agents can do the work of human beings at a superior level. And that's the core thing we need to deal with, right? Whether it can do my job and, drive a plumbing robot doesn't matter, right? We've already validated human beings potentially will be inferior in many of these knowledge fields. So that's kind of prediction number one. Prediction number two, of course, is that workplace and hiring in the society at large is going to go through a profound change. I think that is true. And I also don't think anybody can predict what that's going to look like, given the complexity. Right? If you think about it at a high level, we are, for the first time in the history of humanity, we are bringing, I'll call them entities, right? Intelligent entities into the mix that can be faster, smarter, can do it can do a lot of what we do, but maybe not everything. Can do that for a fraction of the cost. The whole way we interact and work in a society is going to morph. And how that ends up is anybody's guess. You can make claims of how you think it's going to go. You can even look at early signals and say, ooh, this is where it's going, but there's no guarantee that signal is going to play out. So my only prediction is you have to be prepared for radical change, a period of radical change in how these systems work, which is not the case. When I graduated from college, the system was pretty stable. It's oh yeah, go get a good job, get your apprenticeship. I got mine at Microsoft, right? Build your way up the corporate ladder, get more experience, start to manage people, right? That system actually hasn't radically changed for a long time. I think that's going to change in this world. I just can't tell you how, but you can prep for change is my core point. And then the other kind of vague prediction is that it is absolutely clear there is a large and unknown chunk of current human interactions that are going to move into these agentic interactions. I'll call them transactional interactions. Whether it's an agent reading your email and responding, or agents talking to each other to get work done, right? We are moving into a world where all of the previous human-to-human connections, that they are not going to be there. But what I do know for certain, there will be critical relationship and human-based connections that we'll maintain, right? We are not going to move into a world where it's just all AI robots talking to each other and human beings are off living a life of leisure. I know some people think that isn't, I do not believe that's going to happen, my personal point of view. So this ability to cultivate relationships will still be critical. So with that, this is the last section. If I were in your shoes, and again, kind of my verbal there is talking to some kids. This is a great example of a bad AI. It's can you put an adult feet in kids' shoes? And not quite what I was going for, but just the fact that it can do this is also pretty amazing. But what are the four core things that I tell my kids, that I've told these students, and generally that I would tell anyone working in a knowledge field, actually, almost regardless of level? So what would I do in your shoes? The first thing is I think it's important to ground your mind in the reality of what the world is. So I always think it's important to say what battle am I fighting? What's the battlefield? And for this topic or for this question, you don't know. The playing field, as I mentioned, is unknown because it's evolving so fast. But what you do know, in my mind, or at least what I think I know, right? There are imminently and widely distributed agentic intelligences that are coming across every field, every knowledge field. That's coming for sure. Company structures are going to evolve very rapidly. Can't tell you how. We are going to start shifting into a more transactional world. Don't know what percentages, but that is absolutely going to happen. And this is going to have some unknown impact to how careers progress and what skills are valuable and what moves to AI. So it's kind of an uncomfortable board because you're well, how do I plan a career in that world? How do I make decisions? So for me, and I like simplified frameworks, and this happened to fit nicely. I bring it down to these 4 C's. If I were getting started today, and I'm actually doing all these things myself still today at my, my very old age and old career, learn to be cyborg, conductor, connector, and Crackerjack. So we'll go through each of these briefly. So Cyborg, what does that mean? Cyborg simply means you can't be afraid of these systems and tools, right? We are unleashing an incredible technology in terms of our ability. Now think of you as an individual. Your ability as an individual to do things in the world have now been amplified with AI, with agents, if you can use them properly, right? So do not be afraid of these things in my mind. Like, you absolutely have to figure out and I like this idea of amplify. How do I amplify what I'm doing using these tools and systems? I know there are groups of people that say, no, I'm going to stay away from all of this. To me, that would be the equivalent of saying, oh, no, the internet's coming or computers are coming. I'm looking at those. I'm not going to learn how to use those or be proficient at those. This is going to be an even bigger wave. So absolutely embrace it and go deep and understand, what are these tools? How do I use them? How would I apply them into what I'm doing on my day-to-day basis? Don't be afraid. The second is this idea of conductor. And this is probably a more important thought than the first, because the first maybe is obvious. What is a conductor? We move in a world where resources and intelligences and agents are available to anyone. We move into this really interesting world where everybody can now be in the past we used to talk about these as managers. I like the term conductor better. So let me use my own career, right? When I started at Microsoft, I was a solo individual contributor. This was way back when. Within a couple of years, I started managing a small team. I had 2 people. Now, I had to make this leap from, it's not just me delivering some value. It's me delivering value through a team, through resources. Now I had to learn that skill, right? How do I conduct? How do I manage? How do I lead, right? And then, of course, as I progressed in my career, that got more complex. I had to, it was 15 years before I had a large-scale team with lots of functions, right? Finance and all these different, finance and legal and accounting and product, etc. What are we entering? We're entering in a world where a student today, a kid, could tap agentic systems and have the best experts in multiple fields doing work for them. That's a crazy idea, but what it means is that the skill to conduct, to manage those resources can be built now in a way that was never possible before. So this is a big one. I think the mental model is not, let me just wait until I'm in a corporate structure that allows me to conduct. It's build that skill today, because these agents are available, right? These technologies are available, and it is a very different skill to mobilize agents and people. Now, notice I didn't say just agents, right? This is not just how do I use AI. This is how do I use agents and people together, because ultimately, organizations, companies will require you to manage both. And that's where, if you ask me, where is AI not going to, is going to have a very hard time permeating? It is in conducting across a spectrum of agents and people. And it could probably do the agents okay, but people are very messy, right? There's a human psychology to people and motivation. It's going to be a long time before we have super sophisticated agentic conductors of other human beings. So that is a skill that I think endures. So become a conductor. Make sure you can be a connector. So even though, right, much of our communications, maybe many of our interactions are going to go into a continued digital form, and this is my hot passion area, right? I ran Evite, which is a social connecting service that brought 3+ billion people together face to face to have parties. I'm a huge believer in the power of human connection, and I do not think it goes away. Right? It is going to be an incredibly important skill. If anything, it's going to be a more important skill in a world where a lot of people are used to, right, agents and systems and computers doing things for them. Like, they will not cultivate the ability to actually deal with humans. But if you go back to the conductor mindset, that's going to be as maybe more important of a skill, because people are going to start losing it if they don't cultivate it. So make sure you can maintain and build trusted human connections. It's actually what Move is all about, the company that I'm running right now. And finally, Crackerjack. Crackerjack's just a fun term. It's typically not used in this context, but just means someone who's really, really good and has mastered something. And this is maybe one of the most common question marks for people is, well, if in a world where AIs can do everything, like, what point is there in being a human being that has maybe equal knowledge, maybe less knowledge? And I think that's the wrong mental model, right? The mental model is, look, if you can build deep mastery. Let's pick an arbitrary number. I like the 10% line. Right? Imagine you could be one of the 10% in any knowledge field that you're passionate about. If you're in that top cohort, and now imagine you also are Cyborg, right? You know how to use these systems, and maybe these systems are actually smarter than you, right? But you're enhancing your abilities. You can conduct them and manage them, right? You know how to do that, even though they may know more than you, right? And you have the connection DNA to be able to actually deal with people that is required, right, for you to conduct. If you have this skill set, I think you're set, right? I think you will find a path in the world that will be resilient to all of the ambiguity that is coming. Now, imagine two people. Let's just contrast. Like, imagine you have a Crackerjack in some, let's say, business, since I'm a CEO. So someone who's really, really good at business, but doesn't know how to use the AI tools, is not able to conduct these resources, and is kind of a bad connector, but they know a ton about business. Let's put that a top 5%, business knowledge worker. And you put them against someone who's maybe in the top 20%, but they can do these first things, right? I would argue the ability, that second person is going to crush the first person, because they're basically a cyborg connector conductor, as opposed to just having knowledge in that one area. So Crackerjack, it's still incredibly valuable to build that skill, but you also have to do these other things, in my mind, or at least I would be. So that's what I've got. That's me, my disclaimer, some foundational AI frameworks, a couple of predictions, and what I would do if I were a high school student or college student looking at the world. I would think about those 4 things. Cyborg, right? Embrace AI. Learn how to conduct resources, both human and AI. Make sure you are able to connect with people and cultivate deep skill in something. All very important. So with that, I will close up some, as you can tell, I like to share. I have actually published over the last 2 decades a ton of other content around many things, leadership, business, etc. You can find a bunch of this at my various websites. So there's fourthstakeholder.com and Victor Cho. You can get to all of it from victorcho.com. You can email me at victor@emovid.com. I have a new podcast that was started last year that talks about the collision of technology and humanity. This is a great topics just like this, but with some amazing guests. And finally, Emovid. I will give you 2 seconds of Emovid. Emovid is this incredible platform. It goes to this heart of human connection in a world of AI. It's very clear to me that in this world of AI, we need to be able to maintain these trusted, verified human communications. And so Emovid is that. It is a digital communication platform that works asynchronously, but verifies that you're human. So if you get a message on our platform, you absolutely know this. Get it from me. Actually, if you email me, I'll probably send you one. It's like, this is Victor. This is Victor, verified, his voice, his tone. All legit, all verified human. So with that, I hope to hear from you, and please sign up for the podcast, listen to more episodes, and reach out on any of these to contact me. I'm usually pretty good about response. Thank you for your time, and please share this if you find it valuable. In addition to running this podcast, I'm also the CEO of Emovid. In business today, it's impossible for anyone to tell what digital communication is real versus AI generated or modified. This is a huge issue that we have actually solved at Emovid. Emovid is the only guaranteed authentic asynchronous communication platform that has been built for business. If your business relies upon relationship and trust building, this is a must-have platform for you and your teams. Please check out emovid.com at emovid.com, or even better, if you can see it, scan the QR code and you'll get to see the product in action and even get a special podcast offer. Thank you again for listening.